The Grand War chamber of the Zenithian Fleet sparkled with holographic displays, each one showing Earth from different angles. The crystalline walls reflected countless data streams, creating an atmosphere that would have made any human military analyst drool with envy. But Admiral Kex Vorn, standing tall with his forearms crossed behind his back, saw only numbers. Beautiful, perfect, irrefutable numbers. My fellow council members, Vorn's voice resonated through the chamber, his silver-scaled skin catching the light of the displays. Our mathematical models have never failed us in 10,000 cycles of conquest. Today, I present to you our most thorough analysis yet. High Commander Lara Nexus, her bioluminescent patches pulsing with skepticism, leaned forward. Admiral Vorn, your reputation precedes you. But these, humans, they're an unknown variable. Vorn's upper lip curled into what passed for a smile in his species. Unknown. Hardly. We've run 2.3 million simulations, he gestured with one of his lower arms, and a new hologram materialized, a complex web of equations and probability matrices. Their primitive nuclear weapons? Accounted for. Their scattered military forces? Mapped to the last soldier. Their emotional responses? Quantified down to the smallest neural spike. The War Council chamber erupted in appreciative murmurs. All except for Science Director Rixus, who sat in the corner, her tentacles writhing nervously. Admiral, with all due respect, our previous encounters with carbon-based species have shown nothing relevant to this scenario. Vorn cut her off, his voice dripping with calculated patience. Director, I understand your concerns. But look at these beauty marks. He highlighted several equations floating in the air. Their most advanced weapons barely scratch our shield harmonics. Their fastest ships are like swimming crystal beasts compared to our fleet. And their decision-making processes? Laughably linear. The holographic Earth rotated slowly, its blue oceans and white clouds looking deceptively peaceful. Vorn continued, each word precise and measured. Our models show a 99.98% chance of total victory within 3 standard rotations. The remaining 0.02% accounts for cosmic anomalies like random solar flares or unexpected asteroid impacts. Commander Nexus's bioluminescence shifted to a more approving purple. And civilian casualties. Minimal, Vorn responded, pulling up another set of projections. We'll target their military installations first. Our quantum targeting systems are programmed to recognize and avoid population centers. After all, we're not barbarians. A ripple of appreciative laughter echoed through the chamber. The humans believe they're alone in the universe, Vorn concluded, his forearms spread wide in a gesture of absolute certainty. Their mathematical understanding is rudimentary at best. They still use something called calculus. More laughter. They'll never see us coming, and by the time they do, our victory will be mathematically inevitable. Science Director Rixus's tentacles had stopped their nervous dance, but her voice still carried a note of warning. And if they surprise us? Admiral Vorn's expression hardened. Director, please. We're the Zenithian Fleet. We don't get surprised. In exactly 15 standard hours, we launch the first attack. The only variable left to calculate is how quickly they'll surrender. As the council members filed out of the chamber, Vorn remained, watching the holographic Earth spin. Such a simple equation, really. Input force, output victory. Clean, precise, perfect. Oh, how perfectly wrong he was. The first wave of Zenithian ships sliced through Earth's atmosphere exactly as predicted, their quantum engines humming with mathematical precision. Admiral Vorn watched from his command ship, the perfect equation, as his fleet positioned itself above Earth's major military installations. His upper arms manipulated the holographic controls while his lower ones recorded the events for posterity. Launch the precision strikes in 3, 2, 1. Vorn's voice was calm, almost bored. According to the models, humans would detect their presence approximately 2.3 seconds before impact, leaving them no time to mount any meaningful defense. The energy beams lanced downward, each one targeted with pinpoint accuracy. Vorn allowed himself a small smile as the first beams hit their targets. Right on schedule, right on target. Then everything went sideways. Admiral Lieutenant Zara Kell's scales had turned a pale green. Something's wrong with the targeting systems. Vorn frowned. Impossible. Run a diagnostic. Sir, the humans, they're shooting back. What? Vorn's forearms froze above the control panels. How? our models showed their reaction time would be. A massive explosion rocked the perfect equation, sending several crew members tumbling across the bridge. Warning signals blared as holographic displays flickered with damage reports. They had pre-positioned orbital defense platforms, Kel shouted over the chaos. Completely dark until they fired. We never detected them. Vorn's mind raced. This wasn't in any of the simulations. The humans weren't supposed to have this level of space-based weaponry. Their technological progress had been calculated down to the decimal point. Sir Communications Officer Nexar's voice cracked with disbelief. We're picking up transmissions, they're laughing. Sure enough, human combat chatter filtered through the ship's speakers, filled with whoops and cheers and what seemed to be quotes from something called movies. Did you see that shot? Just like the Death Star run. Hey aliens, how's that math working out for ya? Welcome to Earth, calculator boys. Another explosion shook the ship. Vorn grabbed his command console with all 4 arms to stay upright. Status report. We've lost 30% of the first wave, Kel reported, her scales now almost white with stress. The humans are using some kind of randomized defense pattern. Our predictive algorithms can't keep up. Sir Nexar cut in. You need to see this. A new hologram appeared, showing Earth's surface. Where there should have been panicked masses fleeing in mathematically predictable patterns, there was organization. Civilians were calmly following evacuation procedures that had apparently been in place for years. Military units were emerging from hidden bunkers that hadn't appeared on any scans. And most impossibly of all, people were fighting back with a mixture of advanced weapons and what appeared to be improvised explosives. How Vorn whispered. The models, the simulations. Admiral Science Director Rixus's voice came through on a private channel, her tentacles visibly agitated. I believe I know what went wrong. We made a fundamental error in our calculations. What error? Vorn demanded as another explosion rocked the ship. We assumed humans would respond logically. But they're not just responding, they're adapting. And she paused, her tentacles curling in embarrassment. It appears they've been preparing for this exact scenario for over a century through something called science fiction. Vorn stared at the battle displays in growing horror as more ships reported heavy damage. The humans weren't following any of the predicted patterns. They were mixing advanced technology with primitive warfare, space-age weapons with guerrilla tactics. It was chaos. Beautiful, terrible, incalculable chaos. Full retreat, Vorn ordered, his voice barely a whisper. Sir. Full retreat, he roared. All ships, emergency quantum jump. We need to completely recalculate our approach. As the Zenithian Fleet scrambled to escape Earth's orbit, pursued by a barrage of weapons that shouldn't have existed, Vorn heard one last human transmission. Come back anytime. We've got plenty more surprises for ya. The perfect equation limped back into quantum space, trailing debris and wounded pride. In the ship's database, the invasion time log read total operation time 13 minutes, 42 seconds. They had lasted less than 15 minutes against a species that still used calculus. Admiral Kex Vorn stood before the War Council again, but this time the chamber felt different. The pristine holographic displays showed battle damage reports instead of victory predictions. His silver scales had lost their luster, and all 4 of his arms hung limply at his sides. How high, Commander Nexus demanded, her bioluminescence flashing angry red. Explain how the most advanced computational fleet in the galaxy retreated from a level 3 civilization. Because we were counting wrong, Science Director Rixus interrupted, her tentacles moving with newfound confidence. She pulled up a series of recordings from the battle. Look at this. When we attacked their military base in this region called Texas, they responded with officially sanctioned military units. But simultaneously, civilian transport vehicles, they call them pickup trucks, launched attacks from 3 different directions. Vorn nodded slowly. The civilians had weapons, not just standard weapons, but modified ones, custom-built. Their signatures didn't match anything in our databases. Precisely, Rixus manipulated the holographic display. We calculated for military resistance. We calculated for civilian panic. We never calculated for civilian resistance. Look at this recording. The Council watched as a human civilian vehicle swerved through Zenithian energy beams, while its occupant leaned out the window with what appeared to be a mining explosive duct taped to a commercial drone. The improvised weapons slipped right through the ship's shield harmonics, which had been calibrated for military-grade explosives. They're using primitive weapons in ways we never imagined, Vorn admitted. Our shields are designed to stop nuclear missiles. Not, what did they call it? A potato gun loaded with ball bearings and fireworks. The council chamber erupted in confused murmurs. High Commander Nexus's bioluminescence shifted to a puzzled blue. What's a potato? That's not the point, Vorn continued. We based our calculations on logic, on military doctrine, on established patterns. But humans? They don't follow patterns. They make them up as they go along. New footage appeared, humans using mirrored surfaces to redirect Zenithian targeting systems, civilian communications networks repurposed into military coordination tools, and social media platforms spreading battle tactics faster than Zenithian ships could adapt. Look at this, Rixus highlighted a particularly chaotic battle scene. When we disabled their military communications, they switched to something called Twitch streams and TikTok to coordinate their defense. Their young people were posting tactical advice as something called life hacks. Vorn stepped forward, his posture straightening. Members of the council, I was wrong. Catastrophically wrong. But I've learned something valuable. The humans' greatest weapon isn't their technology, or even their military. It's their unpredictability. He brought up a new series of calculations. Every time we adapt our strategy, they don't just counter it, they turn it into a game. They're treating this invasion like something they've rehearsed their entire lives through entertainment. They're not just fighting us, they're having fun doing it. This is unprecedented, Nexus said, her color now shifting to an intrigued purple. No species has ever prepared for invasion through thousands of fictional scenarios, Rixus finished. They've been imagining this fight for generations. Every possible way to defeat a technologically superior force, they've already thought about it. And they're improvising new ones by the hour. Vorn manipulated the holographic controls with all four arms, bringing up a new simulation. I propose a radical strategy: stop trying to predict them. Instead, we need to understand them. Their chaos has patterns, we just need to learn to see them. You want to study them? Nexus asked incredulously. After they humiliated our fleet. No, Vorn replied, a new respect evident in his voice. I want to learn from them. A species that can turn mining tools into space-worthy weapons, that can coordinate global defense through entertainment platforms, that can adapt faster than our quantum computers can calculate. They're not our inferiors, they're our future. The chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. On the main display, a human news broadcast played silently, showing civilians celebrating their victory by recreating the battle in something called a TikTok challenge. Besides, Vorn added with what almost looked like a human smile, wouldn't you rather have them as allies than enemies? The bridge of the USS Constellation buzzed with activity as Captain Maya Rodriguez watched the Zenithian fleet emerge from quantum space. Her brown eyes narrowed as she studied their formation, a slight smile playing at the corners of her mouth. The aliens had adapted their tactics, but so had humanity. They're using a new shield configuration, her tactical officer, Jack Chen, reported. Looks like they finally figured out how to block those improvised mining charges. Good thing we're not using those anymore, Rodriguez replied, adjusting her command chair's position. She'd personally modified it with parts from her grandfather's old racing car. The hydraulic suspension gave her better reaction time during combat maneuvers. Not exactly standard Starfleet issue, but then again, nothing about humanity's resistance was standard anymore. The Zenithian fleet approached in perfect geometric patterns, their ships arranged in what mathematical models would consider an optimal attack formation. Admiral Vorn's flagship, the Perfect Equation, led the charge, its quantum engines leaving trails of calculated precision through space. All ships, execute Operation Board Game, Rodriguez commanded, her voice carrying the excitement of someone about to play their favorite game. The human fleet broke apart, each ship moving in seemingly random directions. On board the Perfect Equation, Admiral Vorn watched with all four eyes wide. What are they doing? This formation defies all tactical logic. Science Director Rixus, now stationed on Vorn's bridge as a tactical advisor, studied the movements. Sir, these patterns, they look familiar. The human ships continued their bizarre maneuvers, some moving in L shapes, others making diagonal runs across space. Suddenly, Rixus's tentacles went rigid with recognition. Admiral. These are chess moves. They're recreating a human game called chess, but in 3 dimensions. Before Vorn could process this information, the human fleet's true strategy revealed itself. Each ship's apparently random movement had placed them in perfect position to exploit gaps in the Zenithian formation. The geometric perfection of the alien fleet had become its weakness. Now that's what I call check. Rodriguez grinned as she gave the signal. All ships, light them up. The human fleet opened fire from positions that no tactical computer would have considered advantageous. Beams of energy and salvos of missiles struck the Zenithian ships from angles their shields weren't prepared to defend. How Vorn demanded as his bridge rocked with impacts. Their tactical computers shouldn't be capable of calculating these trajectories. They're not using computers, Rexus replied, her tentacles waving in agitation. Captain Rodriguez is manually coordinating these attacks. She's playing the fleet like a game. Rodriguez's voice crackled over the open communications channel. Hey, Admiral. Did you calculate the probability of US turning space warfare into a giant game of three-dimensional chess mixed with football plays? Vorn's response was cut short as the USS Constellation executed what looked like a barrel roll combined with a drift maneuver that should have been impossible for a ship that size. Captain Chen called out, "The modifications to the inertial dampeners won't hold much longer." "They'll hold," Rodriguez replied confidently. "My cousin's a drag racer. She helped me rebuild them using nitrous oxide regulators. Who knew street racing mods would come in handy in space?" The battle continued to unfold like a cosmic dance, with human ships moving in patterns that made perfect sense to anyone who'd ever played games but appeared as pure chaos to the Zenithian tactical computers. Sir Lieutenant Kell reported from her station on the perfect equation. Their ships are using modified civilian technology. Their shields are partially generated by. Are these gaming console processors? PlayStation 7's Rodriguez's voice confirmed over the channel. Turns out they're great at handling parallel processing when you network about 50 of them together. Who knew all those years of gaming would help us build better shield matrices? Vorn watched in amazement as the human fleet continued to outmaneuver his ships using tactics pulled from video games, sports, and board games. They weren't just adapting technology, they were changing the fundamental rules of space combat. Admiral Rexus said softly, "I believe I understand now. We've been trying to fight a war, according to mathematical principles. They're treating it like the ultimate game, and they're having fun doing it." The perfect equation shuddered as another volley struck home. On the USS Constellation, Rodriguez keyed in a series of commands that looked more like cheat codes than military orders. "All ships, execute maneuver blue shell special," she called out. The human fleet suddenly broke formation and reformed into a pattern that any gamer would recognize, but left the Zenithian computers struggling to computers. Sir Kell reported, her scales pale with stress. "We're detecting energy readings that don't match any known weapon's profile. They appear to be. Did they just modify their ship's engines to act like video game power-ups?" Vorn watched as the human ships began glowing with energy signatures that pulsed in time with what seemed to be background music. The USS Constellation led the charge, its modified engines leaving a rainbow trail through space that would have looked right at home in a racing game. Admiral Vorn, Rodriguez's voice carried a note of genuine enthusiasm. "You're about to see why humanity's been preparing for this moment through every game we've ever played. Ready, Player 1. The last thing Vorn saw before giving the retreat order was Captain Rodriguez's ship pulling off a maneuver that combined a chess knight's move with a Mario Kart power slide, all while broadcasting what humans called boss battle music. On all frequencies. The neutral meeting ground chosen for the confrontation was a repurposed space station orbiting Mars. Admiral Kex Vorn walked through its corridors, his forearms clasped behind his back, silver scales reflecting the station's lights. Science Director Rexus followed, her tentacles curling nervously as they approached the conference room. "Remember," Rexus whispered, "they requested this meeting. After that last battle, we need answers." Vorn finished. The doors slid open to reveal Captain Maya Rodriguez, lounging in a chair with her feet propped up on the conference table. She was drinking something from a container labeled Mountain Dew. Admiral Rodriguez greeted him with a casual salute. "Love what you've done with your ships lately." The new shield configurations were almost hard to crack. Almost. Vorn's upper arms twitched. "Captain Rodriguez, your unconventional tactics have proven quite effective." Unconventional, Rodriguez laughed, setting down her drink. No, Admiral. Unconventional would be if we stuck to traditional military doctrine. What humanity did was embrace chaos as an art form. She pressed a button, and the room's holographic displays came to life. They showed footage from the various battles, but from Earth's perspective. Vorn watched in amazement as civilian engineers modified gaming consoles into tactical computers, street racers adapted their nitrous systems for spaceship engines, and social media influencers coordinated global defense strategies through viral challenges. You see, Admiral, Rodriguez continued, standing up to walk around the table, while you were calculating our military capabilities, you missed something fundamental. Humanity wasn't just preparing for war through our militaries. We were preparing through our games, our sports, our movies, our memes. Every piece of entertainment, every hobby, every silly modification to a car or a computer, it was all practice. Rixus's tentacles writhed in fascination. But the computational power needed to coordinate such diverse systems. Who said anything about computers? Rodriguez grinned. She pulled out what looked like a handheld gaming device. This is my old Nintendo Switch. We networked about 1 million of these together to create adaptive battle algorithms. Turns out gaming hardware is fantastic at processing unpredictable scenarios. Vorn's scales shifted color slightly. You mean to tell me that your entire defense strategy was based on entertainment? Not just entertainment, Admiral. Innovation. Creativity. Fun. Rodriguez's expression turned serious. You know what your biggest mistake was? You thought we would respond to an invasion with fear. Instead, we responded with imagination. She activated another display, showing Earth's current defensive capabilities. Vorn's 4 eyes widened as he saw the full extent of human adaptation. Civilian ships retrofitted with technology that shouldn't work but did. Weapons systems that ignored conventional physics in favor of solutions pulled from video games. Communication networks that operated on principles more akin to social media trends than military protocols. Impossible, he whispered. Your civilization shouldn't be capable of this level of advancement. Advancement. Rodriguez shook her head. No, Admiral. This isn't advancement. This is humanity doing what we do best, making stuff up as we go along and having fun while doing it. You calculated our technological progress, but you couldn't calculate our creativity. She pressed another button, and the room's display showed something that made both Vorn and Rixus step back in shock. Earth's complete defensive capabilities, revealed in full for the first time. Those orbital platforms that surprised you in the first battle, powered by modified PlayStation networks. Our fleet's unpredictable movements, based on chess strategies mixed with dance moves. The shields that your weapons couldn't penetrate, running on algorithms we developed for massively multiplayer online games. Vorn slowly sank into a chair, all 4 arms limp. Your species, you turned warfare into a game. No, Rodriguez corrected him. We turned games into warfare. Every human hobby, every passion, every silly thing we do for fun, it all became part of our defense. We're not just fighting you, Admiral. We're outthinking you, out-creating you, and honestly, we're having a blast doing it. She walked over to a window, looking out at Mars. So here's the deal. You can keep trying to invade us with your perfect calculations and precise strategies. We'll keep coming up with new ways to turn our entertainment into your worst nightmare. Or Vorn prompted, newfound respect evident in his voice. Rodriguez turned back with a smile that reminded Vorn of the first time he'd underestimated her. Or you can join us. Think about it. Your computational power combined with our creativity? We could explore the galaxy together, find new ways to solve problems, and probably have a lot of fun doing it. The room fell silent as Vorn considered her words. He looked at Rixus, whose tentacles had stopped their nervous movement and now waved with excited curiosity. He thought about how his perfect calculations had been defeated by humans using gaming consoles and social media. He thought about the joy in their battle cries, the innovation in their strategies, the sheer unpredictable brilliance of their solutions. Finally, Admiral Kex Vorn, commander of the most mathematically perfect fleet in the galaxy, made a decision that no equation could have predicted. He reached out with all 4 arms and picked up the gaming controller Rodriguez had left on the table. Captain, he said, his scales shifting to match the colors of her uniform, teach me how to play. 6 months after the historic meeting, Admiral Kex Vorn stood on the observation deck of the perfect equation, watching Earth's swirling clouds below. His ship, once a testament to mathematical precision, now sported modifications that would have made his former self-scales fall off in shock. The quantum engines had been redesigned with principles borrowed from human racing games. The tactical computers now ran on a hybrid system that combined Zenithian calculations with human gaming algorithms. And perhaps most shocking of all, the bridge crew had installed something called a snack bar. Admiral Science Director Rexus approached, her tentacles casually manipulating a handheld gaming device. The latest reports from the Cultural Exchange Program are in. Vorn nodded, watching as a human cargo ship performed an unnecessarily flashy spin maneuver while docking with the station below. Let me guess. More chaos. Productive chaos, Rexus corrected him. The Zenithian Academy of Mathematics has officially introduced a new field of study, human improvisational theory. And 3 of our colony worlds have opened what they call arcade training centers. The peace negotiations had evolved far beyond simple treaties. Humanity had insisted on including cultural exchanges, technological collaboration, and something they called gaming tournaments. The galactic society that had once prided itself on perfect prediction now found itself embracing uncertainty with open arms. "Did you see the latest modification Captain Rodriguez made to her ship?" Rexus asked, her tentacles wiggling with excitement. "She installed a quantum drift system based on our calculations, but controlled by something called a Nintendo Power Glove." Vorn's scales shifted to an amused blue. "And it works better than our original design." "Of course it does." He turned to face the vast expanse of space, where human and Zenithian ships now flew together in formations that defied both logic and physics, while somehow being more effective than either species' original tactics. "You know," he mused, "our original error wasn't in our calculations. It was in thinking that calculations were enough. The humans taught us that sometimes the best solution is the one that makes no sense at all." Below them, Earth continued its peaceful rotation, its orbit now shared by an eclectic mix of traditional Zenithian stations and human installations that looked suspiciously like giant game consoles. The planet's defense network had become a testament to the power of combining mathematical precision with creative chaos. "Your orders?" Admiral Rexus asked, putting away her game. Vorn's scales rippled with all the colors of Earth's oceans as he smiled. "Send a message to Captain Rodriguez. Tell her I'm ready for that rematch in Mario Kart Quantum Edition. This time I've calculated the perfect power slide." As Rexus left, Vorn remained at the window, watching humanity's influence spread across the stars like a beautiful, chaotic, perfectly unpredictable wave of change. In the end, the greatest calculation error had been believing that everything needed to make sense. Sometimes, the best solutions came from simply pressing play and enjoying the game.